Hello. I wanted to do something a little different for this video by giving a channel ranking of the different Doctor Who titles that we've had from 1963 up to the present titles, or the latest titles that we've had with Jodie Whittaker. There's 17 to rank that I've got on my list, and I was inspired by Channel Pup, whose channel I will link on your screen. I watched that video and I found myself really interested in ranking the different Doctor Who title sequences that have been used over the years, and I found myself disagreeing somewhat passionately with some of the rankings that he put forward. And I also wanted to do something a little different initially. I thought of including the different webcast title sequences. So Death Comes to Time, Real Time Shada, Scream of the Shulker, as they are technically official BBC productions that have been released by the BBC on a platform as part of what was considered at the time, at least, to be an official Doctor Who release. And I fell sort of short of adding them, or I decided not to, simply because in terms of comparison, fan-made reconstructions aside, particularly for Scream of the Shulker, which there are some amazing reconstructions out there, the quality of them is so different to broadcast television or stream television that they don't really compare. The themes may do. I mean, most of them, apart from Scream of the Shulker and Death Comes to Time, use the 1970s or 1966 theme. But I decided that I decided against including those because they are designed for a much lower frame rate, because they were flash animations designed for people, or at least accommodating of people who still had dial-up connections. And so I left those out. But I still have 17 versions of the title sequence to rank. And because I disagreed with Channel Pup on some points, I decided to make my own. So I've got 17. And we'll start with number 17, which is the 2014 title sequence, Peter Capaldi's. And I know there were a few different versions of it, particularly with regards to the scream or the sting at the beginning. This is really unfortunate because Peter Capaldi, his 12th Doctor, is my favourite new series Doctor by far. Peter Capaldi just exemplifies everything that I think it means to be the Doctor, and he captured all of it brilliantly, and I think we're so fortunate and so blessed to have had him as our Doctor. Unfortunately, his theme and his title sequence are a bit shit. And it breaks my heart that his titles are at the bottom. But let me tell you why. Firstly, his version of the theme, well, not his version because he didn't make it, but Murray Gold's version of the theme from 2014 to 2017 is so jarring. The bass line doesn't really resemble the Doctor Who bass line. Like, I mean, it's clearly Doctor Who, but it just doesn't have the typical boodle-dum, 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 boodle-dum. By the way, if you ever want me to do an a cappella version of the theme, I may consider it. And especially the melody. It's almost screaming. It's not the weird, mysterious theme that we're accustomed to. And the title sequence are also in that vein. They're so heavily focused on time. There's a few really badly rendered planets thrown in the sequence, but there's such a heavy focus on time and clocks that I find it really jarring. Doctor Who, and you're going to hear me saying this with other sequences, Doctor Who isn't just about time travel, it's not just about space travel, it's about time and space. And even though I know these titles were based on fan-made titles, a fan who came up with a concept, and I think that concept's really good and original, I'm not sure that it's Doctor Who. So it breaks my heart that this is at the bottom of my list. Number 16, coming in at 16, is 1987. Again, this breaks my heart. Of all the classic Doctors, Sylvester McCoy's Seventh Doctor is by far my favourite. And if you want an example or an instance or justification as to why I think he is so good, just look at my I Am the Doctor track, where I put together a compilation of clips showing just how incredible his Doctor is. Unfortunately, the theme and the titles haven't aged very well. The title, the visuals especially, the CGI, which may well have been cutting edge at the time, and people may have been like, "Whoa, look at that, rocks!" It just doesn't work. It doesn't work anymore. It looks silly, and the theme. If I remember rightly, this was the first version of the Doctor Who theme that Delia Derbyshire herself said she didn't like, and I don't like it either. The bass line sounds so truncated. We're used to the Doctor Who bass line being doodle-a-doo, doodle-a-doo, but in this version it's da-da-da-da-da-da. It's like it's incomplete. It's not fully developed, and that I find that really jarring. Also, the key that the theme is in is, if I remember rightly, A minor, where the traditional key is E minor. Don't come for me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's right. So even though the theme sounds somewhat spooky and mysterious, it still sounds very dated, and the titles reflect that. So I'm sorry, but that's number 16. Coming in at 15, this will be a surprise to many. It is the 1996 Doctor Who TV movie titles. Even though I love a vortex, and I do love a vortex, and this will be shown later on, I think a vortex sort of is a good representation of what Doctor Who is, and I love the TARDIS from those movies, from that movie, the exterior and the interior. I think the police box prop for the TV movie is the best police box we have ever had. The proportions are amazing. It's just perfect. But the titles, there's not a lot going on there. There's a bit of a vortex. There's the logo, the return of the 1970 logo, updated for the 90s, and it looks amazing. And admittedly, the whole title sequence stands up really well, even today. Those CGI titles, they look really good. But there's not a lot going on there. It's just a vortex with a whole lot of names being thrown at it. And the score, the theme that goes with it by John Debney, is it's very Hollywood, I guess. It's not. It sounds like Doctor Who, and it's clearly the Doctor Who theme. It starts off in a strange place, but it's not clearly the diddle-a-da, 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 diddle-a-da. It starts off with the middle eight, if I remember rightly. And so there's not a lot going on there. It doesn't really tell us much about what this is. Yeah, there's a strange police box and a whole lot of words floating in a vortex. It doesn't tell us much. So that's 15. Coming in at 14. Again, this will be a surprise to a lot of people. 2010. Matt Smith. I really don't like these titles. I don't like the Cloud Vortex that much. I don't like the logo. I don't like the theme. It's so jarring after Murray Gold's brilliant renditions in 2005 and then 2008 to have this weird theme, and the melody to it. It just sounds off. And as for the titles themselves, the Vortex, there's nothing happening. What is going on there? There's just, it tells us, I guess, a bit about the show, but it doesn't really tell us much. There's not a lot going on there. It looks so simple, and these days it looks like a screensaver. Coming in at number 13, 1980. Again, a lot of people are going to be a little miffed about this, that I've put the Starfield sequences so late in the piece. I don't like them. I don't like the Starfields. I can appreciate that in 1980 it would have looked groundbreaking, it would have looked amazing, and to be fair, Peter Howell's theme is a ripper. I can't remember the word is they use these days. It rips? No. It bangs? No. Oh, I can't remember what the word is. Anyway, whatever the word is, that's what it is. It's a great theme. It is ingenious. But the titles, there's so much focus on stars and flying through stars. This isn't Star Trek, it's Doctor Who. This should be a show about someone who travels through time and space, not someone who yahoos around in space, which is what these titles suggest. And the reason I've labelled the 1980 Tom Baker titles the lowest is mostly because the logo is just white. It's supposed to be a neon logo. It should be brighter than that. It should be more colourful than that. And yet it's just white. Which means that coming in at number 12 is 1982's Peter Davison titles. That gets bumped up above the Tom Baker titles because it has a slightly blue, a very pale blue logo. Otherwise it's mostly the same. I mean, it seems slightly more colourful, but that might be just my impression rather than fact. And coming in at number 11, 1985, Colin Baker. Beautiful colours, a very colourful Doctor, and very colourful titles. I love the slightly bent logo, and I love all of the colours in the Starfield. I know that they're trying so hard to go for a vortex look, but to be honest, most of the time that I look at those titles, I don't see a vortex. I don't feel like I'm being sort of thrown through a time vortex. It looks more like a bunch of shimmering lights. I don't know if anyone else feels that way about these titles, but every time I look at them, there have only been maybe 2 occasions in my entire life that I've looked at these titles and thought, oh yeah, it actually feels like I'm going through some sort of time vortex. Most of the time it looks like just a bunch of shimmering lights staying in place, which is effectively what they are. So maybe I'm alone in that and the effect is lost on me. But I love the bent logo, and again, Peter Howell's theme is a banger. Oh, is that the word I was looking for earlier? Banger. It's a banger. I think that's what I want. Anyway, number 10, 1986, Trial of a Time Lord. Same titles, but with Dominic Glynn's simple, mysterious, weird theme, and I really like that. It may not have aged quite as well as Peter Howell's, but Dominic Glynn's theme is pared back. It's much more simplistic, but it also conveys a sense of mystery and weirdness, which is what the Doctor Who theme should convey. That this isn't just a space show. This is something a bit weird. Which is another reason that I don't really like the Starfield titles in general. They don't convey that this is about the really weird shit out there in the universe. It sort of conveys, oh, this is someone who travels around in space. Number 9, 1973, John Pertwee's second titles using the slit scan vortex approach. While I love the vortex, and obviously I elevate that higher than the Starfields, the fact that there's a John Pertwee shaped vortex, I find a little jarring. And the TARDIS in both this one and Tom Baker's titles is really weird. I think it's based on a... is there a TARDIS in... I'm not actually looking at the titles as I record this. I'm going purely from memory. But I can't remember now if there's a TARDIS in John Pertwee's. I think there is. But regardless, in Baker's titles, there is a TARDIS, and it's not remotely accurate. It's possibly based off a photo of a model that's been used. But I like the Starfield. I like it how it merges into a logo. I love the diamond logo, and I'm so glad they brought that back because it's a banger. Now that I remember that term, and it's okay. It sort of conveys, yeah, this is about something pretty weird. There's some weird stuff going on. This is what the show's about. But it still has that weird John Pertwee vortex. Number 8, 1975, Tom Baker, starting in Robot. Same sort of idea. These were much more, these were used for a lot longer, these titles, and again, pretty weird. There's an outline of Tom Baker out there floating through the TARDIS, but I got to admit, I have always appreciated the fact that most titles have the Doctor's face in them. I think that's pretty cool. But again, the TARDIS in these titles is so jarring to me. I don't know why more people don't talk about it. It's not at all in any way resembling the Brachaki prop, which was used still at this point. It looks, I guess, a little more like the Newbury prop, which was used a bit later, especially with the round light on top. But still, it's quite jarring. It's aged alright. Like, it hasn't aged amazingly, but it's aged alright compared to maybe the Starfield. Although the Starfield's aged alright. Maybe the logo especially looks amazing in these. So that's number 8. Coming in at number 7, 2012, Matt Smith's second title, starting with The Snowman. I like these titles, and I'm going to say that again. I like these titles. I know a lot of people don't like it. These titles get a lot of hate, but for me, the ideal Doctor Who titles are those that convey a sense of weirdness, a sense of mystery. When you watch this, is this about space? Is this about time? Is this about human anatomy? What on earth's going on? What is this show about? Those are the kind of titles that I would love to see more of. And the second Matt Smith titles, I think, do that brilliantly. For the first time, we see the Doctor's face in the new series in the titles, and I think that's great. And you can't quite tell, what are you looking at? Are we going through space? Are we going through time? Are we going through someone's aorta? You don't quite get what we're looking at. And I love that. And the theme, I think, is an improvement on the previous one. And again, I know a lot of people would disagree with me on that, but I just prefer the theme. I prefer the bass line. It has more depth to it, I think, than the previous one. And overall, I just love these titles. Number 6, 2008. David Tennant's second titles. Even though the titles visually were the same as what he had before, the theme was different. The theme had much more of a guitar sound to it, especially on the bass line. And I think for that reason, I really like it. I love a guitar in the Doctor Who theme. I don't know if I want it to be centre stage, but what was that story with Capaldi where he played the guitar? Was it something to do with the flood? Under the flood, into the flood, under the flood, under the lake? Something like that. The Beethoven speech, where he played the guitar, I think that was a great one-off. And if I could add that to this list, I would. But 2008, number 6. Great titles, and I'll get into that more when I talk about 2005. And the theme, I think, is really good. I think it works. I think it works for David Tennant, especially having more of a guitar feel to it. I think that works for him. Coming in at number 5 is the 2005 titles used for Christopher Eccleston and David Tennant for his first few seasons. It just works. The theme is amazing. It has this military feel to it while also being definitively Doctor Who. And we've got the time vortex, which 20 years later or 18 years later holds up. It looks amazing. It looks great. It still works. The names of the actors going through the vortex, that looks great. It doesn't look weird. And the 2005 logo, what he said, the logo used in those titles, I don't think is anywhere near as good as the logo that was revealed in 2005 and then used in the 2008 titles. The logo used in these titles seems a bit simplistic and without much sort of texturing to it. Having said that, though, I do remember when the 2005 logo was revealed that there was so much pushback, there was so much hate, and if I remember rightly, Russell T Davies said that the designers of the logo, from whatever organisation they were from, were getting death threats from people who just hated it. And I vaguely remember that the hate of that logo, but I think over time it stood up. I don't think we'd ever had the words Doctor and Who on the same line before this time, but it works. I think it works. I think the theme is amazing. Number 4, 1966. Patrick Troughton's titles, or at least the titles unique to his era. The theme is amazing. The theme this time around has more of sort of an echo to it compared to the 63 version, and the titles are sort of an upgrade of the 63 titles, and this time we get to see Patrick Troughton's face. What sort of lets it down a bit is the typeface for the titles or the logo. It looks more like it belongs to some sort of spaghetti western than a mysterious sci-fi show. But overall, these titles are so clever, and as you will see from this result to the rest of the rankings that I have a soft spot for the weird psychedelic titles. I think these are what Doctor Who is. You look at it and you think, what the hell is going on? What is this? And that is, I think, what makes a great introduction for the series. So at number 3 is the 1970 titles. Quite nostalgic for me. Some of the earliest episodes I remember watching as a child were Spearhead from Space, Inferno, and Terror of the Autons. Here in New Zealand, the Pertwee era was... God, say that quickly. Pertwee era was repeated in the early 90s, and so I watched it as an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, absolutely terrified. So it's somewhat nostalgic for me that I remember these titles and just remember the sense of fear and dread associated with seeing these titles, knowing that something scary was coming up. But also, it's the weird psychedelic titles in colour. Isn't that amazing? Not only do we get the Doctor's face in colour, we get a brand new logo, stylized for the purpose of the Doctor Who titles, not just some generic typeface. And it works so well. They recycled it in 96, and they keep recycling it often as the default logo for the classic series. The whole thing works. It's just brilliant. It is chef's kiss. Number 2, 1963, the OG titles. These were the pioneering titles that set the bar for all of those to come, and as you'll see, only one gets past that simply because of modern computing. But these were brilliant titles, so clever, ingenious, weird, mysterious, ooky, spooky. And the 1963 theme is weird. Admittedly, if you were to start by watching the very first episode, which I know people are a bit salty about at the moment, given the rights issues, you may be mistaken for thinking it was some sort of police drama, but the theme actually tells a different story. The theme says there's something weird going on, and that is what the show is about, and I just love it. The only time these titles could ever be superseded is with number 1, 2018. The Jodie Whittaker titles, accompanied by the theme by Segun Akinola. Brilliant, amazing. It is the application of those weird psychedelic titles of the 60s and early 70s, rescored and sort of regenerated for the 21st century, and they look amazing. Segun's score is just outstanding. It is the original theme reimagined for the 21st century. There's nothing sort of special thrown in to make it different or stand out. It is simply a simple, raw reinterpretation of what was set down 60 years ago, and it works. It works so well, and the visuals of those titles are just amazing. If I remember rightly, one of the people on the production team was the famous YouTuber John Smith, whose amazing work, no doubt, earned him the attention of those at the BBC. And he was a contributing person to the visual effects of the Jodie Whittaker era, and you can tell this isn't just some random outside contracted agency. These titles are made by someone who knows Doctor Who, knows what it's about, and was prepared to deliver and sort of add their name onto the legacy of all of those who have contributed to the titles before. It is amazing, it is brilliant, and I really, really hope that what we get for David Tennant's run and then Ncuti Gatwa's run is something like this, something that tells us that this is a weird, spooky, mysterious show, and you don't quite know what you're in for until you watch it. And that is, I think, why these titles are number one. So that's it. That's my list. If you agree, if you disagree, let me know. Let's have it out. Yeah, I've got nothing else to say. So let me know what you think of these. If there's any titles you think that could be added to these that I've missed, let me know. Peace out.